Well, guys, seeking the next 100 million players. When I first saw this topic, I thought, we get this topic a lot, right? It's the mainstream adoption, when mainstream adoption question. And I thought, we could just talk about the new use cases that are hot right now. Or, considering we have three absolute OGs of the Web3 space on the stage, we could actually have a slightly more difficult but more insightful conversation about some of the challenges that you guys have gone through, the changes in strategy, the pivots that have got you to where you are today, because you're all still standing strong, and that is more that can be said for a lot of other projects in this space. So I think there's a lot that we can learn. I've personally known all of you for some years, so full disclosure, I did invest in Sovrun, formerly known as BreederDAO, and have advised the company since 2021. Seb, we've worked together for many years, sat together on the board of the Blockchain Game Alliance, where he is president and founding board member. And Robbie, we've actually co-invested, maybe not directly, but we do share a lot of the same portfolio companies. So very, very glad to be leading this discussion. But look, I guess a good place to start is, there's an obvious move away from the exuberance of 2020. I mean, those were the golden days. But I think the big change is that back then, people were raising incredible amounts of money off the back of a napkin just because they put the two words blockchain and game together. And there was this dream that we were going to have this AAA game. I think the reality now is a lot different. People are looking at things like there's a new model, risk to earn, or even, gamblify, but with these crypto native elements that still make these games fundamentally Web3, but rather than the high fidelity production. Let's just start there. How are you seeing the landscape right now? What do you think is the priority right now? Seb, do you want to kick us off?
Well, if I link with your point, basically there's much less funding available for game studios and game creators, which in a sense is positive, because then the founders, the builders, they have to be more resourceful, more creative in how they are going to design their gameplay, and they have to pay more attention into actually building product that bring real user and retention behind. So they are not leveraging necessarily token as network effect, user acquisition in a short manner, but they are actually first thinking, what is a good game I can build, and then add on top of that new dynamic mechanisms that leverage potentially crypto, token, stablecoin in gaming to actually monetize and make revenue so I can be self-sustainable. The advent of AI, Gen AI, agentic AI now, world models allows to actually lower the barrier to entry in terms of production cost for many of those games. So that's positive, I think, for the space, and it's also a way to innovate. With every new technology, we have a chance to see what are the possibilities behind. I think the dynamic of blockchain gaming have changed a lot as well. Players, there's no more this old play-to-earn movement, people collecting tokens for airdrop. We've seen a recent project like Axie Infinity or Pixel that even have been publicly voicing their trying to implement system where the token you earn couldn't be transferred to other user or couldn't be sold, as a way to prevent all these bot and farming system that have been put in place, because there are assets of value. So it's a side effect of the benefit of the technology. I think I was mentioning before stablecoin. We recently published a report at the BGA regarding the use of stablecoin in gaming.
It's a brilliant report. It's so in-depth. Go check it out. It's the Blockchain Game Alliance stablecoin report. If you're in Web3 gaming, it is absolutely a must-read.
I think there is a consensus in the industry that stablecoin will help to bring use of cryptocurrency as a payment without the risk of asset deflation, or the actual gamers who care about the game being in a way losing against other parties like investors, KOL, etc., that are essentially extracting the value from them. Yeah, there's a lot to say, so maybe I'll let the other speakers share a little bit.
I think the Web2 giants in gaming are very excited about
Maple Story with Nexon has brought Maple Story. I think that's a game we could spend some time talking about, because that's the largest now in our space.
Robbie, you go next. What's your take on the current state of Web3 gaming? What are the priorities right now? What do you know now that you didn't know in 2020?
I think it's a little bit in the doldrums now, right? We'll be candid about that. And I think, as I was mentioning to you, V had a panel earlier saying NFTs are dead. I think what's happened is that we've learned a lot over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And what we've learned is that actually there are a few things about gamers as a cohort. So one of the things that we, I guess, maybe didn't really understand at first was that not all people there was a big Venn diagram of people in Web3 and people who are gamers.
Yeah.
But that their overlapping interest was also not always motivated in the same direction, right? Some are motivated more by play, some are more motivated more by collection, some are motivated purely by financial extraction, and that's a popular pastime in Web3 as well. And so I think what we see is that in order to build Web3 games, actually it turns out that it's much harder than we thought at the beginning. Designing those kind of token economies to be sustainable is extremely hard, like orders of magnitude more complicated than it is to design a traditional game. And it's just a fact. And so because of that level of complexity, it's only really conducive to games with bigger budgets because you need to put those resources on it. The other part of the problem was that onboarding is very difficult to the infrastructure. And so I think we actually have solves for that. I think AI is actually going to help us with the UI, UX, and the onboarding to a great extent. But there's one fundamental problem that I feel like a broken record because I always say this, which is distribution.
Yeah.
And we were sitting here in 2020 or 2021 saying, oh, it would be great if, for example, on mobile, the app stores would be more embracing of Web3 products. And nothing has changed. And nothing has changed with Steam. And so there are still relatively few places where traditional games are distributed that we can offer products that have blockchain infrastructure. And so I'm not blaming it on that, but it does make it harder.
Yeah. It's interesting when you say the Venn diagram. It reminded me of every single pitch deck back in like 2020, 2021 that had a giant pie chart with the TAM of the Web2 gaming industry, which was like, in India alone, there's 400 to 500 million gamers. If we could just get 1% of that market. I don't see that pie chart coming up anymore.
Yeah.
Renz, I got a specific question for you in the same vein, but one of the things that you and I were both very excited about was this idea of fully on-chain games and autonomous worlds. I'll let you take that one. Where are we at with autonomous worlds right now?
Right. I think back in 2021, of course, the idea was just like, we look at Axie Infinity. It was a model that worked. People played it, and so everybody started copying it, right? But when we kind of dissected what's the core fundamental thing about like Axie Infinity, it wasn't because it was cute or people loved the gameplay. It was because they made it so that the assets were actually decentralized and on-chain, right? And that created an entirely new economy that now allowed for people to not only create them, but to also sell them, which created a new economics around like the game itself. And so when we were like looking into gaming, we're like, what if the real value of gaming, or really blockchain in gaming, is the idea of creating a fully autonomous world where everything becomes on-chain, where systems and components are allowed to be built on top of, and that creates like new modes that people have never experienced before. And so we were like, if we were able to create like a decentralized IP and that everyone can use it, and now new breeds of that IP can be born out of it, then maybe it creates like a very successful thing out of that, and everyone can then enjoy it. And that was actually one of the theses that we had back then. And it's the same thesis that we're trying to still push forward, that maybe decentralization is a key for anything that is actually on-chain. Sad to say though, we thought that during that time, it wasn't enough. Like people, when asked to contribute, wouldn't really contribute as much as they want to, right? Because of all of these other things that they also have in mind. And that's why we also think that with the age of like agents right now, it would become easier. Like I can be, an individual that powers the brain of like 100 agents, and I can just say I want to do this, and the agents will execute. I can say that I want to build something on top of this one, and then the agents will help do that, right? So now it seems like more and more of these things are becoming more possible, just like with what Sebastian said, that because of the advent of agents, then production gets easier, right? And in the same vein, we could also expect that anything that we wanted to do before that we cannot, but we had the brain power to do so, can now be executed and can now be delivered. So maybe not now, but it's coming closer, right, to that idea. And I think we've seen that, games like EVE Online have already started. What if we allow people to create smart contracts and build new functionalities around the game? Yes, it's bounded by the rules of the same game, but you're still able to explore what the people, that your users, are capable of if given a chance. And you don't need 1 million users. You need people who are dedicated, who wants to be able to participate in the game and have the capacity to be able to do so.
Slight correction, it's EVE Frontier.
Sorry, EVE Frontier, yeah.
Blockchain-based game, but yes, definitely check it out. It's really fascinating. All right, so let's talk about the sandbox. Let's talk about the journey and where you're at now, because I know you've just launched some really interesting new things. I remember, back in, let's say 2021, which really was the heyday for us, right? I mean, the Sandbox was in the biggest publications all around the world. You had, in every headline, you had the coolest partnerships in the world, and you still do, you're still going strong. But as I said before, we've seen a die down in the exuberance. So that's been challenging, but you're still going strong, as I said. So I want to chat about what happened last year. We've had a bit of a leadership change. So Arthur Madrid, your co-founder, and Sebastian, you've stepped into new roles. And Robbie, you've come in as CEO. And now we've got some new ventures. So there's the launch of SANDchain. Yep. There's Corners, which is a UGC meme platform on Base. And the core platform is really seeking new avenues for engagement. So I'm really interested to learn, what did you learn over the last few years that has taken you in this new direction? Where do you see the future of this?
Right.
Do you want to start with SANDchain?
I'll jump maybe with a general perspective about gaming, because the topic here is how do we reach the next 100 million users?
Yeah.
At Sandbox we reached 8 million users, and you saw all the effort we had to deploy to build a whole platform that empower creators to make games, the tool, the marketplace, the brand partnership, the token, etc. It's been extremely hard, and we've been successful. And 100 million users, I don't know if you saw the latest publication of Roblox numbers. They have 134 million daily active users. And that's Roblox. That's the game that everyone from 7 to 90 years old is now aware about on the street. So
it's a very high benchmark, right?
That's a high benchmark. And so I don't necessarily think that we need to aim for large number of gamers. We need to aim for quality, highly engaged users. And that's what Sandbox has been having by focusing on the creator first.
Yep.
And here's my link to the SANDchain and how we're actually have been seeing the strengths of Sandbox and its brands is not just to be a metaverse or gaming virtual world. It's actually to be an ecosystem that empower a creator. Yes, we started with gaming on mobile in 2D back in the days, and now in Voxel, and now I'm sure Robbie will be talking about our initiative around AI and so on. But at the end of the day, I think Sandbox is an ecosystem that's here to empower content creators and the creators' economy at scale, not just in gaming, but across all platforms, including the Web 2. So we want to utilize the SAN token, which is one of the core assets. We want to utilize the brand's partnership and then the brand name of Sandbox to onboard content creators from traditional social media, Twitter, Discord, Instagram, YouTube, and so on, and give them access to our distribution, our token, bring on the creator on our economy, which is essentially Web 2 and not on-chain, to facilitate faster payouts, new use case for loyalty and engagement for the content creator, and abstracting the complexity of blockchain, not having them required to create new token and so on, just creating quest and engagement system for their audience to watch more video, earn rewards, and be part of that new economy.
Yeah, I think reducing that friction is so key, right? We hear that all the time. Yeah. So, Robbie, what's your view on it? I'd love to hear, where this venture is going in the future.
So I think, following on what Sebastian was saying, I think one of the things that we really think when we look back at what we've learned from Sandbox over the last 5 years, we had, I think, a lot of success, especially early on, engaging both users as well as builders, as well as brands. Because Sandbox, I think, still remains probably the biggest concentration of brand presence, let's call it,
Yes.
in Web3.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we'd like to do with that is, the original mission was always to create a platform for creators. But what do we mean by creators? The mission of creators originally was specifically building voxel-style content in this UGC metaverse. However, we actually have, I think, an expanded philosophy, because really we'd love to be able to support creators wherever they create. And we have the capability through the infrastructure of what is actually quite a large token ecosystem through Sand to support creators in other aspects as well. And it's something that, frankly, I think there was a bit of an opportunity cost to, because it was something we didn't take advantage of over the last 4 or 5 years. And so that's why through SANDchain we can embrace Web 2 creators, whether they're creating video content or audio content or other. And also through things, new initiatives like Corners, we can embrace that Sand infrastructure for creators who are, clipping and curating web content and other things, because it's part of the Sandbox ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to support creators, and we want Sand as a token also to be the infrastructure of that creator economy.
I got to say, just on the partnership thing, you guys really did. It was unparalleled in terms of partnerships. I have so many of the NFTs. I've got the Snoop one, the Paris Hilton one, the Playboy Mansion one.
Going to see even more. Like we can drop some alpha, like Alpha Season 7, our largest. Like we've been running various seasons almost every year that attract a lot of brand and users. It's coming, it's launching next week, I think. Yep. We have 30 experiences. 10 of them will be featuring top brands and celebrity again. So think of the like of Bruce Lee. We have a few very cool content again.
Yes.
And then the rest is UGC. So there's also a larger focus again around like the creator economy. And then I think we have things that we haven't yet fully explored with Sandbox. We were limited and constrained on our platform. We were limited in certain technological aspects. And this year could be a breakthrough year. We're still here. We're still building with Robbie and the team.
Yeah.
And we're leveraging new tech to achieve that.
Although I think also, just to add on to that, not specifically about Sandbox, but the context of this panel is about the next whatever X million users.
I think we should discuss that actually. What is a reasonable number? As you said, 100 million is a bit crazy.
Maybe I can reframe it, because as Seb said, we had 8 million users on Sandbox, which we're very proud of.
Yeah.
But which by Web 2 standards is a very, very small game, right? And so to actually go back to the example of Eve Frontier, or Eve Online for that matter, I think Hilmar wouldn't mind me mentioning the fact that in November and December on Eve Online, he had his 2 highest revenue months in the history of the game. And it's a 20-year-old game.
Yeah.
And I think what's important is not just that he's successful because it's an existing successful game for 20 years. What's more important is he does that off of a small, highly devoted, highly faithful audience who is highly engaged. And I think that that's actually something that we're really good at in Web3. Because if you look at all the games that we're talking about, whether it's Sandbox or Axie Infinity, you name it, any Web3 game which is still currently in operation relies on a core fan base who loves it and who spends more money and who spends more time, because actually the Web3 infrastructure being relatively low cost and quite user-friendly when it comes to commission and transactions and things like that means that you can run a game economy and a game with a much smaller, more passionate audience.
Yep.
And you can survive as a business with a game that has 100,000 users or 500,000 users, not 50 million.
Yeah, EVE Online is a great parallel because it's also a very steep onboarding curve, even to get into the Web 2 game. It's just so difficult to learn to play, but the people who stick with it, they play it obsessively for years and years and years. I went to FanFest in Iceland, which is their annual player meetup, and you meet these people who literally do talk about it like an addiction. They're like, I had to have a break for a few years. But to your point, perhaps it is these power users that we need to be looking out for. It isn't the next 100 million. It might be
and I think
much lower than that, but
Web
more
3
engaged.
is the power users. Like literally everybody in Web 3 is kind of in that Venn diagram of power user because we're all early adopters of technology.
Yeah, yeah. Renz, how is that informing what you're working on right now? I know you're looking at virtual sports.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep. Yeah. So I guess earlier last year, we were into like the fully on-chain nest of everything, right? But then we realized, hey, we're going back into the habit that have failed us for the past few years, which is just trying to believe in the dream, right? Just trying to sell that dream because capital was there, right? No one was looking at solving a need. Everyone was trying to sell the dream. Like I would be the Roblox equivalent of Web3. I would be, the GTA equivalent of Web3, right? And it sounds really nice because you have comparables in terms of valuation. But in theory, it's actually hard to sell that because they already have these existing games, right? Even the Web3 of like Counter-Strike, which is a common one, right? Who has raised millions, right? I don't know where they're at right now. But yeah, we were trying to sell the dream. And so we were like, if we were to keep on going like this, and no one really wants everything to be fully on-chain, or maybe in the future someone wants that, right? But as it is, no one, or we don't have any intended user in mind, then we would just fall into the same trap. So while we were doing some research, right, we encountered the fact that, hey, virtual sports game is a category that is 10 billion right now, but it's projected to be 100 billion in the next 10 years.
Wow.
So we're like, it is an opportunity that no one is looking at. And the thing about like, I'd say like gambling or, actually, yeah, it's gambling. Gambling games is that a lot of these guys aren't looking at, newer tech innovations. And so I wouldn't say like there's not much competition, but they progress slower than most, right? Than most games. I mean, the most popular one is still slots, right? So, I mean, it's not that the standards are low. It's like their niche or in their group would actually just really want to play this one, and it's less on they have really nice graphics, but more on the game loop or the economic loop is actually pretty nice. So yeah, we wanted to hone in on something like that because we thought that, hey, with the advent of both like AI and a blockchain, we can make something that is more fair, but at the same time something more interactive. So we wanted to play around between our regular virtual sports game and like sports games as a whole, right? Whereby, you have this 24/7 content replayability that you get from virtual sports game, but at the same time you have that emotional affinity that you get from playing that you get from watching sports games. So we thought that this is definitely an idea that makes sense because it already has a market, but at the same time you are offering something that no one has ever offered before. So the idea is really simple, like introducing AI agents into virtual sports and reintroducing that entire concept that with virtual sports, it's just digital characters inside the game because these digital characters can now live in places where you thought wasn't possible. Like most of the characters that we have also exist in social media platforms, and we're looking to bring like real life IPs or real life celebrities back into the virtual sports to participate, and that's really exciting for me. So in a way, it's like working off of like your guys' playbook and taking the best and applying it for ourselves as well.
You look like you were chomping at the bit to add.
I want to bounce back on what you were saying. Like recently, there's been like this annual industry report about state of mobile gaming published by Sensor Tower. It's a service that collects all data of downloads, revenue, cost of acquisition about games. In 2025, actually, for the first time, the number of downloads of game has been lower than downloads of apps. So there is like a huge decrease and slowdown, even in the mobile gaming industry, which has been traditionally the leading platform for free-to-play. Game developers are looking for new avenue, like mostly PC and Steam publishing, because it's getting definitely harder, not just for Web3, but Web2 game as well, to be discovered and to monetize. The second thing that's interesting in that report is exactly what you said. There is a 36% overlap between sports app users and gambling app or prediction market apps. So they converge, and like what we're starting to see in terms of adoption, which can be inspiring for the gaming industry, is like crypto is being adopted not from like download like your Robinhood app, your banking app, or a crypto exchange app, but through sport and sport betting application, where it's just like your wallet is there, your profile, your bets, and so on. So I do believe that's a great showcase of like how crypto again can come back in gaming through this understanding really clearly the overlap of audience and the kind of behaviors that people are expecting in those kind of apps.
Yeah, I think we've always believed that entertainment was going to be the Trojan horse for crypto. That would always be the way that so many consumers would get their first taste. So that's what when I saw this panel, I thought, I don't think the North Star has changed for us. It's just the way that we get there has been a bit of a winding road, which if you don't expect that in tech, then you shouldn't be in tech.
Well, you might find it though in unexpected places because when we go back to the heyday of 2021, obviously OpenSea was the biggest marketplace for NFTs.
Yeah.
But today, actually, it's a place called Courtyard. And the interesting thing is that they really focus just on one product, which are Pokemon cards, physical Pokemon cards. And
it's a fantastic use case.
Yes, it's a perfect,
really is.
it's a very easy to understand use case. For those of you who don't know it, you vault your physical card and then they issue you an NFT against it and you can trade the digital NFTs.
And it adds all this liquidity to the TCG market that just didn't exist before.
And it's not new. Like in 2020, 21, there was already a lot of like auction houses and tokenized cards. But the fact that all the hype around TCG, trading cards, Pokemon, but others is coming back, is pushing a new way to create liquidity for those markets. And the technology here is making a comeback.
And I think what I would implore for anybody who's a game developer in the audience to think about is all of those Pokemon cards are now permissionless assets as NFTs. So if you wanted to make a game that uses Pokemon cards, your players from Courtyard will just bring their cards to go and play in your game. I mean, this is the dream of interoperability. We want them to come to Sandbox. We want them to just travel around the internet. So it's a huge opportunity. There's $40 million a month worth of trading customers who can bring their stuff to your experience.
Yeah. Guys, we're going to run out of time. I wish we could talk longer, but before we do run out, I've got to ask you, Robbie, we've talked so much about the challenges, and I feel like it sounds like everything's really bad, but from where I'm sitting, I've actually never been so bullish on the industry. I think it's been a filter. We've seen a lot of things leave, but the people who are still left standing are really quality projects that are well-funded and have a very bright future. Someone who also has a bright future, I would have to say, is Animoca Brands. You guys have been expanding. So you're leveraging your in-house gaming success that we've talked about, but you're diversifying into things like decentralized identity, education, institutional finance. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're managing 500 million in liquid assets and over 600 investments and navigating a reverse merger to list on the NASDAQ by the end of the year. So tell us a little bit about the strategic expansion and what this actually means for the Animoca brands that we know and love. What is it going to look like in the future?
So I think just in a nutshell, our roots are in gaming. We were a game developer when we started life, and that's how we came to discover blockchain. But frankly, for the last 6 or 7 years, we've been very interested in all different aspects of the industry. But I think we've been best known for our activities with consumers, like games. Obviously, things like the Sandbox, I think, have caught more attention, obviously, because it's a fun, sexy project, right? So the things that we do in DeFi and institutional finance, frankly, are less well known. But I do think that we're hitting a stage in the industry where, as you said, there's a lot to be excited about. It just so happens that most of the activity and adoption we see at the moment tends to be more in institutional finance than in consumer applications, because we do have this ebb and flow. And so for us, that means it's culminating hopefully into us going back into the public markets by the end of this year. And we're very excited to be doing so.
Yeah, congratulations. I'm excited too. I've got one last question to leave you with. We didn't dive too much into AI, but if we are going to get to the next 100 million players, what percentage do you think will actually be human?
I can jump on that one. Like,
Go for it.
with AI, like I think we'll get to 100 million creators, if not more. I'm super excited in the current phase around like what vibe coding provides in terms of accessibility to make new gameplay.
Yeah.
What agentic AI provide and new world generation model. So if you look at Genie 3 and the likes, it's never been simpler to imagine immersive world that you can work. And even interaction are limited for now. They will progressively improve, they will become persistent, the duration of the gameplay will increase, and we'll invent new form of gameplay and storytelling that will blend even with like films and so on. So 100 million creator in games, I think it's possible. And I look forward to that because the cost to start creating game, the effort, the kind of talent you need is getting lower and lower, and that's a huge opportunity.
Well, the UGC tools in the sandbox were already amazing in terms of how it democratized access to people wanting to be able to create these digital assets. Thinking about combining that with like AI and vibe coding today, it's like...
It's been our North Star. I think that's what we continue working on now. Yeah.
What percentage are going to be human, Renz?
Definitely more than half, but that's okay because it's all 100% human powered anyway. So, or at least like 100% human brain powered.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, and I think also on the back of what Sebastian was saying, we have another game in the portfolio called Anichess. And so the team actually created a complementary Web 2 app to help introduce and teach chess to people so they could play any chess. And that game is called King's Gambit, and that was launched last week. And King's Gambit is 100% vibe coded.
Oh, really? Wow.
Approved by the App Store and everything. It was created actually by a non-technical team internally who just loves chess.
Wow.
So it's a great example of, as Seb was saying, lowering the bar to accessing creator tools. And I think in terms of your question about whether players are humans or robots, as a proprietor, I don't care as long as they pay.
I was going to say, like, does it actually matter? As long as it comes back to the experience at the end of the day. And if we're vibe coding that quickly, then we can get to MVP faster. We're going to be iterating more things. I think the future is bright.
Exactly.
Guys, it is always great to chat with you. I look forward to catching up at Consensus next year and hearing where you're at. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.